When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind around for Monday night. Download a Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rewind Raw. I am the always happy and peachy John Pollock, joined by Wai Ting. How are you, Wai?
Well, I'm good, John. So before we go on the air, I mean, at what is it now, 11:07 p.m. Eastern, and I'm pretty sure we had a bit of an overrun today, didn't we? It always feels like we have an overrun. So, I mean, we set out to start live at 11:05, and God, it's like it's becoming that much more impossible by the day. Anyway, so we don't have much time to chit chat before these live streams, John and I. So I just simply asked John how he's doing, and you could just tell in the man's voice. Ugh.
Yeah, it's one of those nights.
Yeah, so it's okay.
I literally found out 4 minutes ago that I think our washer's broken, and there's only so much I can take away. And it's
goodness.
Just like a crumbling of just my spirit. Okay, it's just.
Didn't you just deal with this?
Dude, it's always something. Okay, there's always something that is broken. There is always something that needs attention, and it's just like, can I get a break? No, the break is reserved for your appliances. I just want to rent. I just want to go back to I'll live in a tent.
I mean, honestly, it doesn't seem like the worst deal sometimes, right? If this ever doesn't work out, this podcasting stuff with post wrestling, I mean, I know what
you want to do.
I know what my second career is. I'm going to be a plumber. Are you kidding me? You'll always have work. I think I'll be a millionaire. Quite frankly, there's always something to do. Like I'm trying to look for a plumber right now to deal with my water pressure, and they're always busy, always booked up. So maybe that's what we'll pivot to.
It's what my dad told me to do in high school. He always hit on me. He's like, be a plumber, be a plumber. That was always his advice towards me. And I never took it seriously. And, I felt it was just, he thought like, just shoot for some. He was also the one that said, like, university isn't for everyone. Like, okay, what are you trying to say about me? And
he's absolutely right.
He's 100% right. As I've gotten older, I was like, there was a lot of wisdom here, a lot of wisdom that he was bestowing upon me. I definitely didn't need 4 years of university. Definitely did not need it.
Yeah.
I could have done 2 years at like a college, and I would have been fine.
For what we learned, 2 was definitely enough.
I can't say like there is definitely value of what I got out of that, but versus like the time spent and what I
money.
I mean, there you go. Deep in debt is more than just a Kazuchika Okada former hold.
Yes. Thanks.
Top of everyone's mind. Wai, how was Wu-Tang?
It was fantastic, John. It was my, I guess not so much WrestleDream, but it was another dream, of mine to be able to see Wu-Tang in concert. They played with Nas and De La Soul yesterday here in Toronto, and I've never seen them before. And like
none of them?
I've seen them individually. I've seen the Jizza, I've seen like Raekwon, Ghostface, but
I see.
I once tried to go to like what was it, like I think I tried to go to like, I don't know, Peterborough or something, or Pickering, to be able to see like a show with like You God and Inspector Deck, and I think it might have been like Jizza, I don't know. And then I got turned away at the door because like I knew somebody who was supposed to get me on the list, somebody that actually worked with us, and it turned out that that person ended up not having those connections, and I didn't find out until I got there. Anyway, that's all.
Afterwards.
That's all to say that it's like, in order to be a Wu-Tang fan, I feel like especially in Canada, you had to collect each of them separately, and you had to do this over the course of several years because
they're like trading cards.
Yeah, because like I mean, to my recollection, I don't know how often they necessarily toured before, like all together, before a certain year. But then even when they did tour together, I felt like it was a pretty rare circumstance where you'd get all the members together, and I thought that was going to be the case tomorrow, or yesterday, I should say. I didn't have those expectations. And in fact, they kind of played with those expectations. So like they'll do like the individual introductions. And then what would happen often is like, they'd start doing their songs, and then they'd have like members do the missing members parts. And they did that for like the first half. And then the word was that, they had everybody except Method Man, because like I guess he's involved in some sort of acting project. He's kind of like, the biggest star of the group. And then the Method Man shows up, for Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. And it made me go crazy. It was like seeing Adam Copeland come out to his old theme song. You know what I mean?
Or to his new theme song as well.
Old and new theme song, sure, whatever. But
I don't think that Method Man would ever attach his name to something called Metalingus.
Well, he did do a song.
I think a lot of people are just realizing the name of this, like this awful name for just a terrible name for a song that I think so many fans have grown up just loving this song, and this is the first time they've actually realized what it's called, and it's just like that's the stupidest name for a song.
I mean, when you've heard it long enough, I mean, you'll kind of accept anything, right? Anyway, so it was a dream come true, and on top of that,
you were not expecting Method Man.
Not at all. I had known that he had shown up at some of the New York shows, but I mean, that's kind of New York, right? That's their home territory. But what it turns out is that he actually seems to be on tour like with them the whole time now, and I think it's partially due to the actors' strike. So it's really worked out.
This actors' strike has been a godsend, I guess, for a lot of these people. Well, I'm glad you had a great time. It sounds like it was a very fun show. I saw some of your videos. Looked like it was a really big crowd on top of it.
It seemed pretty full to me.
This was Scotiabank?
Scotiabank, the same place where Forbidden Door took place. So yeah, thank you very much for holding down the fort here. I mean, I know I missed quite the pay-per-view, so thank you, and John Cena especially. I mean, first of all, he informed me that the concert was on the same day as WrestleDream, and if there's a Wu-Tang fan out there who understands, I'm sure it would be John Cena. So no, on his birthday weekend, no less. So
yeah, he also held it back from you. He was like, when you were stating about like Method Man probably not being there, and I think he knew what the answer was, but he let you just enjoy it organically. He could have really WH'd you.
Clearly a man who understands the value of spoilers. So thank you, John.
Well, off the top, we are going to get Wai's thoughts on WrestleDream, and we'll talk a bit about Adam Copeland, which was the big news story coming out of WrestleDream. But we wanted to spend a little bit of time at the beginning of the show to go over this month at the Post Wrestling Café. We had already mentioned to you on over the weekend that we have been introducing audio news updates that I've been doing, and those will be coming out a minimum of 3 per week for Double and Espresso members at the Post Wrestling Cafe. We did this on Friday and did one for today's news updates, and we're going to provide a sample for all patrons for Wednesday and Friday. So at any level on the cafe, you'll get to sample these audio updates, and then beginning next Monday, they will be exclusive to the Double and Espresso tier and ad-free shows. Not the other podcast network, but rather just the concept itself, as we will be adding Rewind to Raw, Rewind to Dynamite, and our pay-per-view reviews on the Post Wrestling Cafe feed, commercial free for everybody. And that started last night with WrestleDream and will continue with this show.
And it's not like we have like a ton of ad breaks on these podcasts, but it's just sort of an added bonus, that doesn't really take a whole lot of extra work from us, to upload.
It's actually an unadded bonus.
Yes, thank you. Very good, John. Sorry. Yes, but it's something we just want to throw out there. Some of you guys just want to hear the show's completely clean, and it's just a little bit of an added perk that we want to give to all of our very kind patrons who keep this whole thing alive.
Some people might just seek out, like you have some beautiful reads, Wai.
That is very true. Yeah. So you can still download the other versions. Sure.
We're giving you options. That's
right. In fact, you should just set the download on and not even listen to it, just to kind of, give us the extra hit. Download it on every device you have. Open up your iPad, download the podcast. Okay, like 10 browsers at a time. Just download them all. Go around your office. Go on your friends' laptops. Go on your coworkers' laptops and just download Post Wrestling.
Well, this month you will have a lot to tell your office coworkers about, because for all Cafe members, this coming month, look at this breathtaking graphic that was put together by the great Wai Ting. We are going to have 2 editions of Rewind Away this month, starting this Thursday with a review of Predator, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jesse Ventura, and Carl Weathers. And if you want to look at give me the most basic CGI a film could experiment with in the late 80s, this was it. Okay. Have you started this yet? Wai?
Not at all. No, I'll be doing that sometime tomorrow, but I'm very much looking forward to it. I didn't know Carl Weathers was in this thing. And in fact, this
You and I have never seen this movie, and it's a pretty of the Arnold Schwarzenegger films. I would say it's one of the more notable ones.
It's very true. Yeah, I feel like I've seen almost every Arnold film, or at least the classics, and this is definitely a series I have not watched yet. So yeah.
So we're reviewing that this week. This was a selection because I guess by the loosest connection, Jesse Ventura qualified this as a review that we took on. But if you're not digging film reviews, well, later this month, it's the big one. WrestleMania X7 will be reviewed by myself and Wai Ting. That will be coming out October the 19th. So 2 editions of Rewind Away coming your way. And then in November, we're getting into WCW 2000 territory. So you can stay tuned for that. Loki Season 2. They gave me a new season. I'm going to be going back to Disney Plus. This will be the return of Loki as Rich Fan and WH Park will be returning every Sunday night on the Post Wrestling Cafe, and they will be talking about the season premiere this coming week. So this series drops Thursday, I understand, and then they'll be doing their reviews Sunday.
Yeah, I believe they come out on Thursdays now, and it'll give you the entire weekend to catch up on that week's edition. And then on Sunday, look for WH and Rich and a series of guests to join them as they talk about it on MCU later.
New Japan, we will have Karen Peterson and Bruce Lord coming together. We have Destruction in Rio Goku, which is next Monday. Royal Quest 3, which is the following weekend at the Copperbox Arena. And then Fighting Spirit Unleashed in Las Vegas at the end of the month. We will have a Bound for Glory review on October 21st with myself and John Cino. And then your Café membership at all levels gets you weekly Rewind to SmackDowns with the ability to call in at the end of the show, Collision Course with Kate from Montreal and John Cino, and of course, Ask Away, our mailbag show each and every month. It is $6 that gets you in the door and access to all of these shows this month, 30 days access. And of course, you can go and grab all of the archives that date back, Wai tells us, over 1,000 shows to just sit down and listen to one by one.
It is completely true. In fact, I have a way of tracking it because Patreon now offers these things called collections, which are basically playlists. And I tag everyone, that's an exclusive podcast. And I guess somehow in these 5 years, we have amassed over 1,000 bonus shows, just not even including what we do normally on this free feed, just on the Post Wrestling Cafe itself, 1,000 plus bonus podcast. So between that and also this week, John Pollock's daily news updates being read to you by John Pollock himself, you'd be silly not to sign up for $6 a month.
Yeah, it's a little weird to be reading my own writing. It's a little different, but I'm enjoying these so far. Yeah, it's just different. That's all.
You're very good at them. Like, I mean, listen, there are a lot of people who do one aspect of this job. John handles like 10 different aspects of this sort of work, and he does it all at the John Pollock standard. You're basically a Wu-Tang Clan onto yourself.
Jack of all trades, master of none, as they say. But you can check all of that, postwrestlingcafe.com. And most of all, by joining the cafe, you're helping keep Post Wrestling running and helps us contribute to a lot of free content that we put out with a lot of contributors that we continue to grow with. And so that is the lifeblood here at Post Wrestling Cafe. So check it out for a big month in October. And yes, we will be putting out the audio updates for all patrons this week and then double espresso patrons from next week onward.
And just by the way, in case some of you guys are unaware, we also have video available now for all of the podcasts John and I do as well. So that's available. A lot of you guys are signed up on YouTube and might prefer it. We invite you to sign up at postwrestlingcafe.com, or it's $2 cheaper a month. You still get video, and it's just a little bit more of it's a different website, but do continue to sign on wherever you feel most convenient.
Into the news we go, and we want to start off with the passing of Russ Francis, who was a very well-renowned NFL player with the New England Patriots and San Francisco 49ers, but had quite a kind of side career in professional wrestling. He was the son of longtime Hawaiian promoter Ed Francis. And, he did a lot of wrestling for his father in the AWA and was part of the Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2 that featured the NFL players and the pro wrestlers, which was won by Andre the Giant. It featured William Refrigerator Perry, the year that the Bears had won the Super Bowl. So Russ Francis, he was with a fellow passenger, and they were flying a plane on Sunday and crashed into a ravine. They were flying a Cessna 177, and it ended up both men killed in the plane crash. And he was 70 years of age. So very, very tragic story involving him. But like, he was involved, he would be playing football. And this was at a time when in the off season, he could go and do professional wrestling, something you would not have the same abilities today. But there was a period where he had retired from football out of frustration with the Patriots organization, and then went to work at ABC Sports, and then came out of retirement. So, I mean, the pro wrestling right in his DNA there, retiring and then unretiring in football. And then, continuing his wrestling career, like well into the 80s, once challenged Nick Bockwinkel for the AWA championship. There was a battle royal they did in the Bay Area that was kind of built like Russ Francis being part of it, with the connection locally with the 49ers, and drew something like 9,000 people as well. And if you go into this battle royal from WrestleMania 2, I mean, he's introduced by Gene Okerlund as the son of Ed Francis, and this was easily like the most capable of the football players when it came to professional wrestling itself. So 70 years of age, very sad story, but seemed to be like an avid flyer, and just a sad story of crashing a plane on Sunday. WrestleDream, tons of fallout from this show, and I want to kind of lean on Wai here, because how much of the show have you gotten to see, and what are some of your big takeaways, non-Adam Copeland related? We'll get to that after, but just about the show itself.
I've seen the entire show at this point. Some of it I did have to watch at 2x just to be able to, manage a 5-hour show in the middle of a day beyond my other duties. But the matches I really wanted to see, I watched in full real time, and I thought it was an excellent show, which really should come as no surprise at this point, just given AEW's track record, honestly, given pro wrestling's track record right now. Anytime you have a collection of talent like the WWE or AEW have, you just put them in any sort of a setting where they can have enough time to wrestle, you're going to get a high quality show. I think this was even beyond that. Some buzz, at least from the press conference, suggests that this might have been one of the best shows of the year. I wouldn't disagree, because I thought you had some really
I thought this was one of the best shows AEW has produced. I could very well see this being show of the year. It's going to be a candidate at the very least.
Some really high caliber professional wrestling just across the board, starting from, I think, the 0 hour. I really enjoyed Josh Barnett versus Claudio Castagnoli. I also, in the same vein, really enjoyed Eddie Kingston versus Katsuyori Shibata. 2 wrestling matches that I felt brought a whole lot of realism, and as a tribute to what Antonio Inoki seemed to prefer in his professional wrestling, I thought those 2 matches completely captured it. Of course, along with Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson, which as a dream match completely lived up to the billing. As a fan of grappling and technical wrestling myself, I think they completely delivered everything that you would have expected, between a great story with, having Bryan Danielson just come back from a broken arm injury seemed to be the perfect setting for a submission wrestling based match with Zack Sabre Jr., right? I mean, in character, he's about the worst opponent that a Bryan Danielson could have, given his state, and they completely capitalized on it with, I think, some really dramatic and violent submission storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I love that match. I think it was one of the best of the year, and I think that Bryan Danielson has put together a year, even with several injuries this year, that when you put together the MJF Iron Man match, the Okada match, that I think I really enjoyed it in the moment. And then it was after the circumstances of how he worked the last half of the match. We have the Texas Death Match that he just did with Ricky Starks on top of this. And we've still got 3 months left in the year on top of it. Like, Bryan Danielson, this is shaping up to be one of his career years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And he in interviews he stated that he might have a list of opponents that he wants to wrestle within the company, but I I think if it's anybody, no matter what, like he seems to be giving his full complete effort. And at this point, as fans, we just hope that he stays healthy through it all, don't we?
We will get to Adam Copeland. John Moxley's commentary.
He's excellent. He's great. Like, what a shocker, right? One of the best promos in the entire company is really good at professional wrestling commentary. And I think what makes him so great is the fact that he truly seems to, like, he makes you feel like he really believes what he's watching. And I don't doubt that even in the back, he's probably talking like this. The guy is, I think, every bit of what you
There's
would
an
call
authenticity there. And he was to me the I'm not going to say like the dominant ingredient, but he was something that added to that Zack Sabre Jr. Bryan Danielson match. Like his excitement was just infectious. I thought I thought he brought out like a great dynamic with Jim Ross. I thought those two gelled together very well. And Moxley,
he and Nigel especially, I loved hearing those
they
two
were
together.
great together. I mean, to me, Moxley, like he could very well be like AEW's Joe Rogan at a certain point if he was ever looking to do more of this. And I said this on Sunday, but I'd be really curious if they were going to have him do the Claudio match and just called the audible to have him come back later for more, because it was instant in that match of just all the feedback online towards John Moxley, and people generally, I would say it was like 85 to 90% positive.
It helps that, I mean, these are his training partners, which, it is a story thing, but I really get the sense that these guys are actually in real life training partners as well. So he has a lot of reality to draw from, and he is, I think, every bit like, I don't know, what you might call a bit of a method actor, somebody who really wrestles as if he's truly fighting. And, it comes across in the commentary. I'd be curious to hear him maybe commentate people that he might not be as familiar with, and I don't know what the result of that would be, but
if he's not competing, I would love him and Lenny Leonard to do the next Bloodsport together. I think that would be fantastic.
That would be great. That would be great too.
And for all we know, he may end up like working the next Bloodsport, but I would also love to hear him do call like that style as well.
He's too valuable as a professional wrestler, right? To put on the commentary desk. But in a situation like this, where for whatever reason injury prevents him from working, yeah, I'd love to hear a guest commentary spot.
So how did you feel the arrival of Adam Copeland was handled with the video, the reaction it got? I think, this certainly was not an out of left field arrival, but certainly it got an enormous response from the crowd in Seattle. And this was the dominant story coming out of the show.
I thought it was really well done, really well handled. I think the added touch of having the video just gave it an extra bit of polish that I wasn't necessarily expecting. And I don't even know if that was just an AEW decision or if it was just a decision on his own that he decided to phone up Darby's buddies to film something.
Well, it was like John Carlo was doing was there on top of it. Like I think this was like a AEW project itself, but it seemed like those guys like had the reins to probably like direct the creative of this video.
It looked great, but I really do think like the cherry on top of the entire presentation is having Metalingus. Great. I'm sorry I had to say the name. Yeah, it's a pretty bad name, but it's a classic song. It's completely attached to the man's identity, and if you're not going to have his name, having his music, I think, is almost even. I'm not going to say just more.
I don't think the loss of Edge is any loss at all. Like I always felt it was a name that he outgrew by the time like he was doing the comedic stuff with Christian, but it was just a name that stuck, and it was the branding of the character. I don't think there was any loss of losing this. And again, like I think the rated R superstar, I think for merchandise material, that is to me even more valuable. And at this stage of his career, like I think this guy, if this was a divorce, I mean, he got the sweetheart end of the deal.
He got it pretty good for a guy that spent pretty much his entire career within the WWE, to be able to escape with as much as he has. And listen, losing the name is a big one. Okay. Like if you're advertising on, to a non AEW fan, well, who's Adam Copeland? Right? Like a lot of fans are simply going to know Edge versus blank a whole lot more. But if you can't have that, like having the music is the next best thing. You're generating plenty of buzz, and in several months' time, you would hope that he would have enough people knowing who Adam Copeland is, the way John Moxley has, or the way I guess Bryan Danielson has,
Moxley's a great example. I mean, he was one that like that was of absolutely like Dean Ambrose was an active negative for him. I wouldn't call Edge a negative, the name itself, but for him, that was a great transition out of it. But
did you see some of the trademarks that he reportedly filed?
Yeah, so we have got do you
Cope,
have Cope,
the legend LEDGEND.
What about the he could have gotten rated R superstar
Reg? Okay,
Ledge. How about Adam Copeland? I think Adam Copeland sounds a lot better than these names.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate that there are like 5 Adams in the company right now, and not to mention an Adam Cole already.
But you know what? It's like they have multiple Lees, they have multiple Starks. Like, do we really get that confused over these things? Or is that just like a thing that has been taught to you that's like, I can't possibly think of 2 people with the same name and not get them confused?
You're very right. You are very right. But can you see him
Cope? No,
Cope?
I don't want to see. It's like this is a guy that he had said himself, like if he realized it way back when, like the name Edge, one of the things he didn't like about it was it wasn't a chantable name. Like it didn't have the multiple syllables, and it's like Cope.
I guess so, but
maybe he just scooped up a bunch of stuff. Anything that came to mind, he just grabbed. But yeah. I think he's got the key stuff, and I would just be moving forward with this. In terms of the press conference he did afterwards with Tony Khan, this guy was just over the moon happy to be in AEW. He's going to be on Dynamite and Collision this week in non-wrestling capacities, but will be appearing. And then he will do his first match on Title Tuesday, October 10th against Luchasaurus. So that is a loaded up show for AEW. They do not want to have a loss on an unfamiliar night. And this will make tomorrow night's NXT very interesting to see how much do they counter this show next Tuesday? Like, do you throw the gauntlet or do you just do a regular show? I mean, you're going up against a lot here, and it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. They could throw FTR and the Young Bucks on that Tuesday, like Title Tuesday. We've got 1 title match so far. Obviously, you would assume more are going to be added this week.
I see them stacking it, certainly. And if I'm NXT, what's the reaction? I mean, tradition or at least like conventional thinking would have you think that they would also stack, their show. But what is it better to say that, like, okay, in the event that they lose, is it better to say that, hey, we just put a regular show, so like we didn't even try, so good for you if you won, or do you want to be able to say we tried really hard and we still lost?
What is the biggest play you could see them making of like a main roster person? Like, is there a certain limit you would see, or
so if Becky's healthy, then it would be a Becky match.
Becky's an automatic, I would think. Like they're actively advertising her for next Monday, so I think they're of the belief she'll be cleared to go. It's not as though she has a concussion or something. It's a laceration that
bad laceration.
It's a pretty bad one, but I mean it's one that you can maybe forecast that within a week she should be okay to go.
If you want to go bigger, like, I mean, Cody has yet to, make the trip over to NXT. And if you're looking to counter an AEW audience, having Cody be the person would be pretty.
Cody huge. Is out there. I mean, like maybe it's just
Jade is another one that they could possibly, use up by then. So,
yeah. I mean, I think it's great that you have this big night now where you're going to have both shows load up.
Just like old times.
There you go.
Peaceful online social interactions.
That's it. A lot of rational discourse today about this decision for a free agent to go to a competing company. Yeah. Any other thoughts on Adam Copeland's comments that you did get to see? I mean, he was saying all the right things that you would want to hear. Very hard not to make the direct comparisons to CM Punk of how he came in and was saying a lot of the same things, even aligned with Sting and Darby Allin after that first pay-per-view match that they had as well. I think people are going to be looking at this quite differently, just given the history of Adam Copeland. And it is so clear of so many people on the roster that have spoken publicly since this appearance that just grew up as Edge the be all end all for so many of these wrestlers that looked at him as this iconic figure.
Yeah. I mean, the comparison points pretty much end there, right? Like they end at hey, like he's friends with Sting and Darby, right? Like because I feel
you had like the same mission statement of like, listen, my door's always open. I'm here to teach. I'm here to work with these young talents. I'm blown away by the roster. Like this was, it was, and you're looking for the same kind of impact, at least in the short term, with Adam Copeland. Like I think it's a very fair comparison to look at, what Punk did and Adam Copeland here, like a career WWE guy that is coming over, and it is a short-term spike that you would be hoping to gain.
Certainly in terms of like what they can do for the company. I mean, I kind of have lowered expectations for Adam Copeland compared to CM Punk, just because I think Punk means that much more to an AEW crowd. But I also was more so speaking about maybe what we currently know about how the CM Punk run ended, because I don't think for a second you're going to run into any of those same backstage issues with Adam Copeland.
Probably a good prediction.
Yeah, like by all accounts, just seems like a really good like people person, somebody who at this stage of his career, I think he's a perfect fit for AEW, because even in the WWE, he seemed to have a great deal of autonomy with his own creative direction. Anyway, certainly his own promos, he's more than capable of doing without much guidance. And I think I'm very excited to see like what he can do in this sort of like more of an open sandbox that AEW provides.
Yeah, and he was very diplomatic towards WWE, but at the same time, I mean, he made it clear. He mentioned multiple times how free he felt here. Like that was a word he used multiple times, and the fact that it was like he stressed, I'm a full-time guy. I'm not going to just be showing up every 3 months. And you definitely got the sense like he wanted to be doing more. Like when I looked today on his profile, it was like he did 28 matches in this whole comeback run in WWE. And it did become a little like formulaic of, okay, now it's time for the injury angle for him to disappear. And it would just be sporadic, come back, do your program. And, was not somebody that was so used so sparingly that it was a giant deal when he showed up either. It was sort of like he was in limbo of guy that's working consistently versus, the, 1 or 2 matches a year. He was sort of in that middle where it wasn't just the novelty of Edge showing up as well. But it's, as we have seen, when a performer jumps, it's a fresh coat of paint. And I think with him, it is that much more when you have all these different people to interact with and who benefits a lot from this, like who he will be paired with and what you can get out of somebody that, let's be honest, he's turning 50 this month.
Doesn't look it, man. And certainly in ring, I would say he's still very much, I think, like the Edge of old, like we've only recently seen, with his in-ring performances. I think as a promo, he's the best he's ever been, so as a total package, you can argue he is doing the best work of his career up until his today. So I think there's a full-time schedule is always risky, especially at that age, and especially with the style that AEW demands of its wrestlers. He was going pretty hard in WWE as well, but
it's a high level. He can't just come in and like, I mean, listen, the guy's a hard worker, but it's like if you're involved in like Darby matches, like just look at what Sting has put himself up towards. Like it's a high level on this. Imagine you being an Adam Copeland that just took in that pay-per-view last night. Like the bar is very, very high.
Certainly. But, he's a guy who can do a lot without necessarily taking the type of risk that a Darby Allin has to. Darby at this point really doesn't need to take the level of risk he does as well, but he chooses to. But with that said, the people who benefit the most, obviously Christian, okay? Anybody who's had a prior history with Edge, I think the Hardys suddenly have, an anticipated rematch for anybody who might want to see that. But I think the biggest beneficiaries might be FTR, who, even though they lost CM Punk, they have a new trios partner in Adam Copeland. Rated FTR, I believe, is what they've already teased the name to be. So you've even got that already.
Some other notes from the press conference. We had several injuries on the show. As Wai mentioned, Darby Allin taking that gruesome bump onto the stairs.
Series of bumps.
Yeah, I would say that one was the worst of them. I mean, that made everyone cringe. And then he showed up at the press conference with a sling, and we haven't heard any update yet, but he was said to be going to get it checked out after the press conference and still and then training to climb Mount Everest on top of things. So busy individual. Mark Davis appears, he certainly indicated that his wrist was broken. And if you watch the match from the Power and Glory spot, that appeared to be where the injury was sustained, and he had basically no use of this hand, this wrist, for the rest of the match, even during the Shatter Machine spot where he had to use one arm to lift him. So that's man, Aussie Open, they have been snake bit with injuries, and unfortunately, it looks like another one here with a potential break.
Yeah.
And Ray Phoenix, this appeared to just be storyline related to keep this guy ready, and they're actively promoting him for Wednesday's match with Nick Jackson. And the way it played out with Penta being outnumbered and losing the fall, you could see that one being just sort of a precautionary measure. But those were those notes. And then Tony Khan on his own at the end. This, by the way, was a 2.5-hour press conference that they did at the end of this marathon level show. But he mentioned that WrestleDream will be an annual show. Doesn't know if they'll be back in Seattle, but he thinks this is their best run of pay-per-views, not just critical reception, but also the business that they have generated. He is confident that this will top 100,000 buys based on the digital buys. And we did see the numbers for that Jets-Chiefs game, which I don't know, you were out, but man, my timeline was dominated by this Taylor Swift stuff at the game. 27 million viewers between NBC and Peacock watching that game. So that was a monster they were up against. Do you look at let's say there's great word of mouth and they get up to like 110, 115 with replay buys. How do you view that number coming so close after All Out, and also the first time they ran against not just an NFL game, but a gigantic game too?
I think it would have to be seen as a success, right? Like, in my metric, I don't know how profitable these shows necessarily are for Tony Khan because I don't know how much money they cost. But I think what's more important is to be able to say, hey, we have every single month 100,000 wrestling fans who are willing to pay for this product. For him to be able to say that to his advertisers, to any potential company that wants to purchase these pay-per-views for some sort of streaming platform, that's huge. That's massive. These are people that are willing to spend this much money on us, $50. Less than that if you use NordVPN.com/postwrestling on us every single month. I think that's ultimately what's most important coming out of these.
He also mentioned interest in Katsuhiko Nakajima, which is interesting. You would certainly see, like, if Nakajima does not have a landing spot yet, that's very interesting. And maybe Tony Khan is being very open about this because it's not just a theoretical that he's talking about. But this certainly, if you're Nakajima, you're 35. If you're going to make a big jump, leaving Japan, now is that time in your career you want to do it. You don't want to wait till you're too old to be doing this.
I would almost say that, like, this answer, I can't imagine any reason why he wouldn't be at least, in AEW for a match or two if the offer is out there. I have to imagine it would provide the biggest platform internationally for him, which in turn would up his value in Japan if he ever, chose to stick to a permanent landing spot in Japan. So I fully expect him to come in at this point.
They might ban him from wrestling Bryan Danielson. They might just be, no, we're not putting you guys in a ring together. It's just
a no kicking match.
Yeah. Said it would be great if they could do something with Demetrius Johnson. Him and Kenny Omega are doing their Twitch Street Fighter 6 game on Tuesday night, which John Moxley was very disappointed. He thought this was a match happening on Dynamite. Dude, I would love them to have Demetrius Johnson come in and do something. I would be totally stoked by that.
Has he expressed any interest in professional wrestling in the past?
He has developed into like a really great personality with his breakdowns on his on his Twitch channel, and I think he has never really followed pro wrestling and such, but I think if they were to make it like a something that you saw like with Claudio and Josh Barnett, I think he would be. I mean, he was their front row, and I'm sure he had.
So is Sean Kemp. Is Sean Kemp going to come back? Are you pulling out those shoes?
Dude, if it was 1996, I mean, that would have been, you want to get 1 million buys? It's Sean Kemp, okay? Bringing Gary Payton with him. He also was asked and went into some detail about the negotiations with Jade Cargill, stating that he made a big offer to keep her that he thought was fair, but then she came back and had a higher ask. And Tony did increase which Jade ultimately did not take, which he was surprised because his second offer he made was larger than the first request that Jade made, but said he only had good things to say about Jade Cargill and wanted to give her an excellent send-off with Chris Statlander, and even indicated that from the time they shot the angle on Dynamite to taping the match on Rampage, he was holding out hope that maybe there could be a last-minute deal that they reach. So that would have been, it seemed like he was not just shutting the door, like literally right up until she walked out and did the match with Chris Statlander. But listen, I wrote about this today, and it's the same deal with Adam Copeland, that you have a viable alternative and you can raise your level. And that is great business. If Jade Cargill was looking for the best offer, or if she ultimately, like, WWE was the destination she wanted to end up in, great for her. And she is now probably greatly benefited by the having two offers as opposed to one. So this is a tremendous environment for talent at this moment.
It's wonderful to hear about, because it tells you that there is a competitive marketplace, and it's benefiting. Not every wrestler is going to get this sort of like, bidding war over them, but the ones that truly deserve it, and the
stars
ones
will.
Yeah, like Jade Cargill, and it's resulted in not just, I'm sure, more money for her, but a really great push that she's getting in the WWE as well. So, I mean, this could tell you that, she wasn't necessarily after money, or we don't know. We don't know how much she was making in the WWE. She could have, received an even better counter offer. But I get the sense that she probably, of the two, if all things were equal, probably preferred to be in the WWE anyway. She just seems to me like somebody who, really wants to have that extra mainstream sort of like stage. And obviously the WWE is going to be a bit more of a mainstream stage than AEW. Don't get mad at me, everybody, for saying that. It's only the truth.
Okay, we'll go quick through here as we get to Raw, but SmackDown on Friday, 2,303,000 viewers, 0.6 in the demo, number one among all sports programs, beating out 3 college football games. Rampage did 363,000 viewers and a 0.14 in the demo. This was actually their highest 18 to 49 number going back to August the 11th. So they beat the 2 hours of Grand Slam last week, but if we're comparing 10 to 11, last week did have slightly more viewers for that hour, but this Rampage did beat last week's, even the first hour in the demo. So that does tell you something. And it was the big first quarter that was the peak of the show for the 60 minutes. Highest female audience in the 18 to 49 demo, going all the way back to April the 14th for Rampage. Some bad news for AEW is that they're going to have stronger competition from the NBA in January, because ABC, that is realizing, you know what, why are we putting all of our original programming if we're still going through an actors strike? They are going to take the NBA games that they have, and they're going to put them on in prime time on ABC every Wednesday night in the month of January. So that will be stronger competition that Dynamite will be going up against in the month of January coming up. And then that is all your news that you can find at postwrestling.com. And now we make the move over to Raw, taking place on Monday night from San Jose, California at the SAP Center. WrestleTix reporting 9,486 tickets distributed, up 25% from the last time Raw was here in this building 1 year ago. And we start off with a furious pace with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler brawling at the beginning. And this was all of Nia Jax's, this was like a Christmas carol with like the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future all coming back here from Shayna Baszler, her former tag partner, Raquel Rodriguez, who we learned has been out for weeks with whiplash. Okay, I'll take your word for it. And then Rhea Ripley making her big return. All four are fighting. There's a riptide to a security member, and this crowd, man, they were going nuts for Rhea Ripley as Jax is held back and not happening at Fastlane. So they are holding off on this title match for a future date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty sensible, just rather than rushing for the first week. I thought
this one could be in Saudi Arabia potentially.
Yeah, very possible. I thought it was a great sort of immediate start to the show without really kind of like needing to build up to it, because you already know what the grudge is. The first moment you saw Rhea or really any of these three share the ring with Nia Jax, you knew that this scene was going to happen, and I thought it got the show off to a really good start. I was maybe especially impressed in the fact that they didn't just forget about Shayna nor Raquel as, being two people that were just cannon fodder for Nia. It seems like they're actually using them to tell some sort of story. They're trying to get their revenge as well.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea that you do have sort of like these multiple players in this title picture that you can mix and match. Next week, they're going to do Nia Jax and Raquel Rodriguez. So Damian Priest and Dominic come down and they explain that Finn Balor is not here tonight and was not on the house shows this past weekend. So Rhea explains that each member of the Judgment Day has their responsibilities, and she left for 2 weeks and things fell apart. And she puts it all on Damian Priest for not handling the job, says that Balor is hurt and Damian Priest is not medically cleared. And his match with Jey Uso that they had promoted over the past week is off of tonight's show. And also blames him for Dominic losing the North American title to Trick Williams because Priest wasn't there like she told him to. I mean, she, in like the same sentence, explained he's not medically cleared, but he was not physically involved in this match on Saturday, which if I was Damian Priest, I would have said, because I worked the house show on Saturday against Cody. That probably was a good alibi for Damian Priest.
Well, yes. And I guess beyond that, you could be okay to interfere, but not medically cleared.
Well, not on this show. He couldn't get involved. He didn't get involved. They even explained backstage. He's like, I can't do anything tonight.
Okay. Well,
so, yeah. So Priest did work Cody on Saturday's house show, but then did not work on Sunday's show. JD worked against Cody. So maybe something happened in that match. However, they are actively promoting Judgment Day showing up to SmackDown on Friday and this tag title match that we'll get to for Fastlane. But Priest says, screw Cody, screw Jay. And he points out, I've got my titles. I've got my briefcase. Where's Dom's title? And Rhea, who apparently in Australia got matchmaking power, has booked Dominic in a rematch with Trick Williams tomorrow night on NXT and tells Dom, if you don't win the title, don't bother coming home. So Jey Uso comes out and says that Rhea has bigger balls than Roman Reigns ever had. And Dom ends up holding back Damian Priest, notes that he's not cleared. So Damian leaves the ring and it leads to a fight between Dominic and Jay, with Dominic being super kicked. JD McDonough gets involved. And then as they're beating down Jay 2-on-1, out comes Cody to help, lays out Dom with the crossroads. And Adam Pearce comes to make sense of all of this. And he announces that for Fastlane, the number one contenders after a run of 0 matches teaming together, at least on 2-on-2 action, Cody and Jay will challenge Finn Balor and Damian Priest for the tag titles.
Well, John, when you're a big enough star, I mean, you just jump right up in the rankings, don't you?
Yeah, this one was very strange. This certainly felt like a show that had, like, we know about the issues with Becky Lynch. This sounds legit with Damian Priest not being cleared. You had no Balor, you had no Owens, you had no Zayn. And we went from that like tease of an 8-man last week to this tag title situation. And it just felt like a show that they actually, as of this morning, had something like 6 or 7 segments announced between matches and segments. And it was like one by one, they got changed. Because like they were promoting Becky and Tegan Nox. They were promoting Damian Priest against Jey Uso. They promoted Drew being on Miz TV, and then they changed that around on the show tonight, which was more storyline. But nonetheless, it was it just felt like a show that was all like shuffled.
Yeah, I'm certainly interested in hearing about Owens and Zayn, because it doesn't look like at this point they're going to be at Fastlane. And is there any particular reason for it, or was it more of a creative decision? An 8-man, I think, would have been nice, but maybe having a title match is, that much more, I don't know, appropriate for a PLE, I would say. But beyond that, I thought it was a good segment, really hot crowd reactions for everybody. I love them continuing to play up the Jey Uso, Rhea Ripley flirtation. It makes Jay, I think, that much more appealing as a babyface. And overall, I thought Rhea did a really great job here of basically coming back. And, they say that Judgment Day has no leaders, but she's clearly being portrayed as one. And I think she does a great job of it.
They promoted all of the attention that Jade Cargill's signing generated. And did you see the article on the USA Network website today? This afternoon, they put up an article on USA Network noting the fact that they're not even like leading it to the vignettes. They just flat out say that these NXT vignettes, yes, Brian Pillman Jr. is coming and is another big acquisition from the competitors. Like we scooped them up. And it was just like the timing of it coming out like today and kind of like spoiling these vignettes that you're actively hinting at on television and just flat out stating, yeah, we got him. We got Brian Pillman Jr.
I mean, they're fairly obvious to anybody who's online anyway, but I did read about some of the inaccuracies, I suppose, in this one.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd expect hard-hitting journalism from the broadcaster.
Well, it's the USA Network, and it's just odd because I've never seen USA Network really like do anything like this, but interesting nonetheless. Alpha Academy against Ludwig Kaiser and Giovanni Vinci. Man, Chad Gable, he did this great flying head scissors onto Giovanni Vinci, something you don't see too often. Kaiser is trying to get the tag, and Vinci is not there because earlier he had been knocked into Vinci, knocking him off. They both actually knocked into each other at separate points in the match, and you think that they're just going to have their dissension continue, but in fact here it was Vinci coming to save the day because after Otis hits a caterpillar, Vinci grabs Otis's leg from the floor. He drops off the turnbuckle, and as Gable leaps onto Vinci with a cannonball to the floor, Kaiser hits a running enziguri, pinning Otis in 10 minutes and 46 seconds. So Imperium get a victory, and Giovanni Vinci staves off death.
I guess so. A good match, really great reactions to Otis from this one. It felt like he was being presented as sort of like the focused one here. I'm not exactly sure what the result is supposed to advance because it kind of extinguishes whatever that they're teasing with Vinci and Kaiser, right? He's not incompetent. So everything's good, I guess. I'm not really sure. No sort of advancement of Maxine and Kaiser's relationship either. And more maybe concerning is what Gable's long-term goal of facing Gunther. Well, obviously it's going to happen, but like feels like at what point, because a result like this certainly doesn't build towards that either.
I believe that we're going to get these four mixed and matched for the next 8 episodes of Raw.
It's starting to feel that way, isn't it? Yeah, kind of tiresome.
They did a very good job on this show of airing like highlight packages of some of the big matches from No Mercy, including the Becky Lynch, Tiffany Stratton match, which I thought was an awesome match. Like if you did not see No Mercy, I thought the last 2 matches were just excellent with Ilya Dragunov winning the NXT title. And this women's match, I mean, man, I was super impressed with Tiffany Stratton in this match. And, it was working with someone the caliber of Becky, but man, Tiffany Stratton, she's 24 years old. Where she is going to be in 2 to 3 years, like the sky is the limit for her. And I thought this was another really excellent performance. Probably the best performance we've seen from Tiffany Stratton.
I agree. I think she seems to be the type that, the more you put on her plate, the more she's capable of excelling at. And this was a pretty big match with Becky Lynch in the main event with, weapons and all this stuff. And I thought it turned out really well, especially understanding, the pizza pocket that was dripping out of Becky Lynch's arm. Throughout half the match. It's disgusting.
What did you think about the Barbie spot?
A bit much, and I don't think the crowd reacted too well to it.
No, I mean, you're teasing something that's so synonymous with tax and to not, I thought it was a really lame spot. I can understand, like, they thought it was like this cute idea. I'll tell you though, Becky took those dolls and there was one where she just like whipped her on her ass and she had this mark. Like, I bet it hurt like hell. But it looks so goofy that you're not getting any reaction. It's all the pain, but none of the reaction. And it's like, I bet those things would hurt if you were whipping it as hard as you could. But yeah, that would be the one edit I would have made to that match. Getting back to the show, and Adam Pearce is with Tegan Nox explaining that the match is postponed. And Chelsea Green enters and tells Nox to just suck it up. Some of us are just not championship material, referring to Tegan. So Tegan wants a match, and Adam Pearce's new catchphrase is, "It is official." He used this twice on the show to make matches.
Are we far from getting a t-shirt?
Ooh, that could just sell like hotcakes. Yeah.
Yes.
It is official.
I think these delays have actually really worked out for Tegan Nox. I mean, she was supposed to, we all know, get that first open challenge with Becky Lynch, and then that got changed to Natalya for whatever reason. Now she was supposed to have this match this week, and then this got delayed as well. But what's resulted is a lot of airtime for Tegan Nox. She's had several, showcase matches at this point. She gets a lot of these backstage segments with Adam Pearce. People are continuing to be reminded of who Tegan Nox is, so that this doesn't just feel like a one and done. So it's certainly worked out in her favor.
When you compare to what that open challenge would have been, like have a competitive match, lose to Becky, and is there no follow-up after that? Like maybe they had plans for her, but we don't know. And at least this
they could still have those plans for the follow-up after the loss.
She got a story coming out of getting bumped, and I would say that's way more valuable than getting an 8-minute match on TV like Natalya did that night. Pearce is then we go to the next match. It's Bronson Reed and Cedric Alexander. Wade Barrett very politely notes that Cedric has lost his way over the last couple of months. Got in some dives because he probably doesn't know when he'll be wrestling on Raw again. And then it's Cedric tries for the neuralizer, gets a 2 count, and then a crossbody senton and tsunami as Bronson wins in 2 minutes and 18 seconds. And they just continue to feed people to Bronson Reed for some payoff in the future.
Who do you think?
I again go to, I think he's a great candidate for Seth post Nakamura. I think that would be it's kind of this lull period. You've got Saudi Arabia coming up. You've got Survivor Series where if Seth isn't involved in War Games, I could see Reed getting that spot. I mean, you've also got, unless you're going to pull the trigger on it like a Drew turn, but it almost feels like Drew could go through Cody before he gets to Seth. So you have some options there, but that's one idea.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Pearce is on the phone and Drew appears, doesn't want to be on Miz TV. He did that last week, but he's going to go out and speak to the people. And Pearce says he seems a bit off. And Drew mentions that no one was doing the right thing when the bloodline was kicking the hell out of me every single week. They showed George Kittle, world-renowned Penta fan, switching his allegiance to Shawn Michaels here.
Who's this? The football player?
Yeah, with the 49ers.
Oh, okay.
Pearce then oversees a contract signing with Gunther and Tommaso Ciampa, and Gunther was just decked to the nines here. The match was going to be set up for next Monday on Raw. Ciampa says that Gunther gets opportunity after opportunity, unlike people like me, who are served roadkill and expected to turn it into filet. I was going to say we're served tofu and have to turn it into filet. And he has dreamt of being the Intercontinental Champion since he was 5. And it's not his family's going to be in the front row next week. I was like, oh, no, Ciampa, don't do it. And he says he's not fighting for his family next week. He's fighting for that 5-year-old boy. And Gunther just mocks him. Like, I show up to defend the most important title in the sport, and look how you're dressed. And Ciampa says, you know what? We could do this tonight. Gunther tells him, prove it. And he signs the contract, and it is official. Tonight, they are going to do the IC title match with Gunther and Ciampa. Again, another felt like a, kind of playing this game of just mix and match to fill out this show, and this getting bumped up a week.
Yeah. And this is not that unusual these days, especially like with their effort to try to keep these PLEs down to 2.5 hours. You'll often maybe get these sort of changes the week off. Certainly on SmackDown, that's happened quite often. And I don't think it hurts the card at all. In fact, I think it's a benefit to, Tommaso Ciampa to get a bigger spotlight on a TV main event, but it's a bigger audience. You're getting the main event role. And especially for the closing angle tonight, I thought TV was a better place for it.
So his family misses out on that trip to Omaha next week.
Well, they could still go.
You could,
yeah,
if he's on the show next week.
Yeah, and Ciampa's promo, as expected, was fantastic. All the guy really needs is the mic time and a match that's important enough to get people's attention.
Judgment Day is in the back, and Damian is talking about the Fastlane match, and he's complaining about it. But JD explains that this title match could cause a wedge between Cody and Jay, with Owens and Zayn, in that Cody and Jay are going after the tag titles that Owens and Zayn want back. This was actually like perfectly logical thinking here. And even Damian had to, Damian, he wants to hate JD McDonough, but the guy keeps like coming through in the clutch or making points that are very valid. So that is the story there.
JD is successfully manipulating his way into the Judgment Day, or so we think. It could be earnest. But because he's a heel, it's more than likely manipulation. I love that they're having Rhea warm up to JD first, and then Priest is essentially the Jey Uso, Sami Zayn in the Sami Zayn storyline role, right? He's the last guy to warm up to JD while the rest of the group is starting to like him first. And I especially like the fact that Rhea is being presented as the smart one of the group, and JD is very much the cerebral, type of character as well.
Judgment Day McDonough, JD.
That's it. Perfect fit. Yeah.
Xavier Woods against Ivar. We had Kofi on commentary. With all due respect, Kofi was no John Moxley.
No, he couldn't cuss. Imagine Kofi on pay-per-view cussing.
Hey, Woods, fuck this guy. Michael Cole, we finally got his match ratings. He gave Kofi and Ivar 5 stars 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I looked up because I think the Observer actually gave this 3 3/4. So, fair. Cole clearly has his own little, notebook or whatever. Like he writes a newsletter for all the boys in the back, perhaps, about his own star ratings. I'd love to know his star ratings.
Yeah, maybe Michael Cole would mention that I too was doing HTML for John McAdams' website in exchange for VHS tapes back in the day.
Well, maybe he was at this point. Who knows? We know he has a very secretive, deep-rooted history with professional wrestling.
Yeah, this guy has just a fortress of memorabilia at home. Yeah. Wade mentions Eric's injury, Eric's injury, and that it's an eye for an eye. And Kofi immediately jumps on the pun. It's Ivar for an Ivar. So maybe this could be my commentary partner.
You'd be a great New Day member, I think.
Ivar smashes him into the side of the ring, misses Woods running into the side of the ring. Woods gets him up for a DVD. Crowd is with him. And then Ivar comes down with a seated splash. And then Ivar misses coming off the top, and he's caught with the backwoods as Xavier wins in 8 minutes and 4 seconds. Kofi comes into the ring, gets hit with a spin kick by Ivar, as does Woods, and then drops Kingston on top of Woods. Ivar climbs to the top and hits the most incredible moonsault onto both of them. And I think it was Woods who was on the bottom. I would have been scared out of my mind underneath another guy as this 300-pounder was going to deliver this moonsault.
It's quite honestly, I don't know which one I would prefer to be in that sort of sandwich. I'm sure neither felt that great, but they're really making this moonsault feel like a big deal. I love that they continue to give it these sort of situations to spotlight it. At this point, with this program, starting to feel like it's very much like Imperium versus Alpha Academy. They're just kind of like, on a merry-go-round a little bit too often. Next week, we're getting Kofi versus Ivar again. Yes, I know Eric is injured, but man, you have to be a little bit more creative with some of these match types, or just, throw some other people in the mix and continue to tell your story without necessarily just giving us the same match every single week.
Get a moonsault battle with Io Sky.
Love to see that.
Ivar the moonsault.
Huh?
Like the over the moonsault, but it's Ivar.
Oh, goodness. Wow.
Okay, I'm tired.
Wow.
Michael Cole interviews Seth Rollins in the ring. Goes over all the nicknames he's come up with for Seth over the years, and including the puppeteer. But says Seth is the real puppet here. And he asks Cole, what are you doing? And Cole tells him, you're a Hall of Famer, a future Hall of Famer. Why are you going into one of the most brutal matches ever? Your back is hanging by a thread, which I don't think is how backs stay together, but his career could end on Saturday. Why, Seth? And Rollins asks Cole, how long have you been calling the action here? And he says 26 years, and I've missed 2 shows during that time. And Seth was like, what? He says, Cole, you're addicted and you love it. And that's what it's like for me in this ring. I've given everything I have, and I'm going to leave it all in the ring, no matter what. And what it costs me in order to fill my responsibility. I want to show my daughter an example. It's like, I can promise you, if you come home in a wheelchair telling your daughter that I had to beat Shinsuke Nakamura at Fastlane, which was like the setup for like a bigger premium live event, she'd be like, Dad, you are a puppet. She would not be impressed with this moral judgment that you hold yourself to. So Nakamura appears on the screen, and we've got the subtitles. He's sick of listening to this nonsense and asks if Seth's back injury is a lie to get sympathy. It's like, dude, you've been targeting this back. You better hope it's a legit injury. Like, what's the purpose of your being for the last month? So he then is distracting Seth by being on the screen, but then Shinsuke appears from behind and nails him with the Kinshasa. And Nakamura beats down Seth. He repeatedly is trying to count to 10, but Seth would continually get up until a backbreaker on the chair. And Nakamura does the fastest count to 10 and holds up the belt. So he kind of won. He could have just called this like this was the win. Honestly, if someone had never seen a last man standing match and watched this, like this is how you win, and I'm supposed to watch this for money on Saturday, no, thank you.
I mean, it's on the surface, yes, and in execution, it's not the most, I guess, I don't know, immediately gratifying type of match. But I think, given the story, come on, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it, John? Like, first of all, I thought a really good promo from Rollins. He reminded us that he could get into the serious mode when he needs. I prefer this much to what he did. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, where it sounded like a bit of a bad Macho Man impression tonight. I thought it was great, and I thought it was a great use of Michael Cole's nearly perfect attendance record. To what happened on those 2 days? I wonder.
I want to say I remember he's talked about it. I think one was like literally it was like his son's wedding or something.
Okay,
which I always thought was like crazy. I was like, your dad is like has this job for however many years, and you scheduled your wedding on a Monday night. As I recall, it was like very odd.
Wedding venues are tough to book sometimes.
I guess so. Perhaps I don't know what the other one is.
Maybe maybe it was just like to see how, like whether or not this would get my dad to take a day off.
Yeah, I mean, just yeah, it's quite.
That's incredible. 26 years to only miss 2 days. I mean, yeah, like he deserves some praise here, and I'm glad he got it. But I also continue to love the way that they use Nakamura in these sort of pretty unconventional ways. You know, they found a pretty interesting way of integrating those subtitles into a live setting tonight. And I thought they made a great way to illustrate for people who aren't aware what a last man standing match is, even though you thought it was.
No, it was a fine segment. I'm just stating for the person that would not even know what this match is. I don't know if this was the greatest commercial for it. Becky's in a sling backstage and runs into Tegan Knox. She explains she's not cleared, but when I am, we're going to have a fight. And Tegan's like, I know. Good chat. And someday. Natalya just walks in. That was all we saw of Becky on this show, wasn't it? Just this segment.
It was, yeah. I mean, I imagine she's on the tour bus, anyway, with Rollins traveling, right? So she's probably.
And they continually noted she'll be on NXT tomorrow as well.
Oh, okay. Well, man, that's a lot of flying for her.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Natalya walks in and just explains to Tegan, we got off on the wrong foot. I respect you so much, and I'm proud of you, and I know that you're going to get it done when you finally get your match with Becky Lynch. And she's like, cool, thanks. Very trusting, this Tegan Knox.
Yeah. I mean, this is Natalya seemingly working up a new character. She's kind of like playing, what is it, insincere friend?
Maybe she was sincere.
You're right. We don't know.
Chelsea Green and Tegan Knox, very short match. They got 2 minutes and 5 seconds here. Natalya comes out to stop Piper Niven as Tegan hits the Molly go round, followed by the shiniest wizard. And Natalya gets in the ring. She gives her a hug, and now they're best friends. I did like the fact that if she's going to turn on her, they're not doing it in like the span of 20 minutes, because that would have been so groan inducing. It just would have made Tegan look like a fool here. But they're going to draw this out of whether Natalya has turned over a new leaf or finding out in 2 weeks. Guess what? She hasn't.
They have a lot of hours to fill. And I think, executing a turn that quickly would be pretty detrimental, because I don't know how many other women they have with any sort of like, notoriety at this point.
Maybe they had all this creative written for Drew McIntyre and Riddle. And they're like, well, we could burn this creative, or we could just pass it on to someone else.
Could be. But, this gave us, I think, the promise of a continued storyline for both Tegan Knox and Natalya, coming off of, what I would presume to be a loss for Tegan against Becky Lynch, whenever that will be. And that's promising, and beyond that, it seems like they're at least trying to build a new tag team here with the two. Not that, like, man, I'm clamoring that much for a Piper Niven and Chelsea Green title defense at any point, because they continue to book them like they're nothing. But nonetheless, I'm happy for Tegan and Natalya to get what looks to be a new role.
Saxton interviewed Jey Uso. He says him and Cody are good. We're going for the tag belts. We're good. Great. Drew McIntyre comes out. San Jose, what should we talk about? And he did this in the most sarcastic way. It was like really funny.
Really great. Yeah.
He does not have to explain himself to anyone in the locker room. He only answers to his fans. He's going to stop being the savior, getting involved in fights he doesn't start. And when he hasn't helped, it's not like anyone else is coming from the locker room to help. So they're all hypocrites backstage. I mean, point taken. He calls it a weakness, not a strength of those forgiving Jey Uso so easily. So the Miz comes out and he's pissed that he canceled Miz TV last week, or this week, I should say, and argues that he stood up for Drew, and they're trying to get a shut up Miz chant going as his new thing to go along with tiny balls. Drew explains he's not the type of person that's going to attack people behind their back. I'm going to win my matches and move to the top, and I want to fight you. But Miz says you're two-faced, you play both sides, it's whatever benefits Drew McIntyre. And Miz says, I'm going to be the bigger man, and walk away. And then as Drew turns his back, he runs at him, hits him with the microphone, and Drew knocks him out of the ring. And we get an impromptu match with Drew against Miz in a suit.
Yes, Miz in a suit. I thought the Miz continues to be really good in these sort of roles. Again, he plays like very much the, representative of the dark side. He's the devil on Drew's shoulder trying to pull him in. And I really like the way that they're handling Drew on his path to, first of all, like think he can resist the power of the dark side, I guess. But and also like just the way they're generally presenting Drew, where like he continues to give you great logic for why he's not agreeing with the baby faces. You understand his perspective, but you also,
it's almost too much logic as I'm watching this. Like you did have more of the heel, like last week watching Kofi get beaten up, but I think by and large, I think you look at this guy, I was like, this is a fine case that he has to make.
It's a fine case, but ultimately you still know that it's the heroic thing to do to help somebody when they're down, and beyond that, you look at the other actions of the other baby faces that you also respect, like a Sami Zayn or a Cody, and their ability to forgive and forget. And, you look for that in somebody as, I think, morally high as, the old Drew McIntyre character. This is all to say this sort of debate is way more interesting than 99% of the heel turns that we've ever had in professional wrestling's history. So the fact that we could even understand a guy's side to this extent, I think is wonderful storytelling. Being able to continue to add lines like, the only people I care about are the fans, and having somebody like the Miz oppose him continues to also like blur these lines in a really good way. It's almost to the point now where you're left guessing, is this guy actually turning heel, or is this going to be a straight up babyface versus like disagreeing type of match that he has with Cody? But it's all making this feel like much more of a realistic disagreement and much more realistic potential heel turn for Drew.
Do you think this Drew McIntyre, if he was walking down the street and there was somebody on the ground that was like motionless and he knows CPR, would he just keep walking?
I mean, at this point, yeah, the new Drew would mind his own business and not get involved, because who has helped him if he, was on the ground and needed CPR?
He would help this guy with CPR, and then they would like break the guy's ribs and he'd sue him. Drew's like, no, I'm not getting involved anymore. He
comes across like a guy who's been screwed like that. Yeah. So he's like, he's succumbing to, I think, like his past, his traumatized past with the bloodline. And he's not overcoming those things. He's choosing to do what the villains did to him.
Drew takes on the Miz, and we had some tiny balls chants. Miz gets thrown around with belly to bellies, but then catches him with a lung blower in the ropes. And Miz goes to take the turnbuckle pad off, but doesn't achieve getting it off as he's caught by the referee. So Drew hits the Glasgow Kiss, and he goes to do the countdown, but then grabs his sword. So the referee takes the sword away because that's not part of the rules where you can slice this man's head off. So as he turns his back to remove a deadly weapon, Drew goes over to the corner, removes the turnbuckle pad, and nails Miz's head into the exposed buckle, and then hits the Future Shock DDT to win in 352. So you don't know what the purpose of this is until he gets onto the microphone and says, I'm not the same man I was 30 seconds ago. I'm sorry. And since I apologized, that means I'm forgiven. Yay. Dude, it was in this moment that I was like, I enjoy this character a lot now. Like this is
the best.
I can do anything, but as long as I apologize, that's all that matters.
Yeah, a 10-year-old's logic when they're being forced to apologize for doing something that they shouldn't have done, right? But to use it in this context for a baby face that is about to turn heel, but not really recognizing that he is turning heel in front of our eyes was perfect. Okay. The Miz trying to cheat, and then Drew instead recognizing, hey, I can use this opportunity to just cheat myself just so I can prove a point about how much of a grudge I hold over Jey Uso, I think is just so perfect for a heel, like a modern heel turn, where you see a million of these types on the internet, on Twitter single day with this sort of logic. Yes.
I want to see him like do something heinous on TV, and then the next day he posts something in like a notes app on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Now I could be forgiven. Great.
That's
you can
not
forget
me.
about this and you can move on.
That's not me with like a smiling emoji.
Yeah.
They showed highlights of Dominic and Trick Williams from Saturday, and Jackie Redmond interviews Trick Williams. I really like that they brought him in here for this interview segment on Raw. Because did you get to see this match?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I did. It was obviously Trick Williams was one of the most popular people on the show. I did not think this was a great match on Saturday, but it was the outcome that I think people were the most. I think it was like a title change they maybe didn't quite see, and they're very high on Trick. I think that was clear.
Oh, very much so. And I thought it was the right call, honestly. Like, again, I think the last minute change gave them a lot of extra buzz and momentum heading into the event on Saturday. And yeah, like he's not necessarily at the level of a Carmelo when it comes to, people that feel ready for the main roster. But I think he has the size, he has the charisma, and I feel like that's going to be enough for him to at least, be
that was part of his promo here. I'm 6'4". Like he just gave off his measurements. And
listen, if he wasn't that, he'd have to wrestle like Dragon Lee, right? And if Dragon Lee was this big, he probably wouldn't have to wrestle like Dragon Lee himself either. So I love the fact that they continue to make NXT feel like it's part of the same world, and by giving this sort of spotlight to people that are like buzzworthy at the moment, it gives them a chance to be integrated into the main roster while also help
this
promote
rematch
NXT.
feel like something important tomorrow.
Totally. Yeah.
So he's confronted by Dominic, JD, and Rhea, and Dominic notes he's not coming to NXT alone. So not only are you getting Becky on the show, but it looks like you're getting JD McDonough and Rhea Ripley on the show as well tomorrow. So they're loading up tomorrow, and I can only imagine what they are going to do for next Tuesday. Probably some big angles tomorrow, I would think, that could set up. There's a lot of possibilities, I guess, of what you could do.
Brock Lesnar, just bring it on.
Jackie brings out Cody Rhodes, and he says that Judgment Day is going to be at SmackDown. So will I, and so will Jay. And we're going to win the tag titles at Fastlane, and it's going to be a very different Monday Night Raw. And this was interesting because you do have Cody listed for all these SmackDown shows, and he has done SmackDowns, but dark match segments. And it is something if they put the tag titles on them, and you can have Cody and Jay going back and forth. Not the worst transition when John Cena wraps up his dates on SmackDown, and you potentially have something where you have Cody able to do Fridays.
I mean, it's sensible that you would have Cody, be sort of like a replacement. Although, isn't Roman coming back?
Roman's coming back a week from Friday, but I don't know how. He's only advertised for that Friday. I don't know how many appearances he's going to have.
I just wouldn't love the fact that I wouldn't love Jay going back so quickly. You're still trying to create that separation with him on his own, right?
Well, he's there on Friday. So that is, we have no matches. It's just, they're all going to be here on SmackDown on Friday.
Interesting. So yeah, it makes you wonder if he'll have any interaction with the Usos, you would think, or sorry, with Jimmy. You would think so.
Alpha Academy are in the locker room, and Gable could never be disappointed in Otis. He says Imperium will pay, and then he just goes off. He says Gunther has peaked, and Gable has not. I don't know if Gunther has peaked because he had a 22-minute counter argument coming up. And he said, all those idiots will pay, and he just screams and storms off. Next Monday on Raw, pending any injuries or changes, Becky Lynch against Tegan Nox for the NXT Women's title. I guess, what do you give that odds? 50-50?
Becky versus Tegan?
Yes. Tegan get her match. What could go wrong in the next week?
I mean, it's a pretty deep cut. So, yeah, I would say 50.
Ivar against Kofi Kingston in a Viking Rules match, and Nia Jax against Raquel Rodriguez in Omaha. The main event is Gunther and Tommaso Ciampa for the Intercontinental title. This match was great. Ciampa is going for the Sicilian stretch very early on. Have you adapted to this Sicilian stretch name yet?
I mean, sure. Yeah.
He goes to the rope. Gunther takes over, and now we get into the chop battle. He drops Ciampa onto the edge of the apron. We go through about 2 commercial breaks, and the chops just intensify from both of them, including Ciampa draped in the corner and this big chop and boots him to the floor. Ciampa lands a knee strike and sends Gunther off the apron, and Gunther had missed a chop with his hand and hit the announcer's desk. So his right hand is destroyed from this chop to the announcer's desk, and Ciampa goes after the hand. So Gunther has to transition and use his left hand to chop. The Willow's Bell is hit. He blocks the fairy tale ending, and then Ciampa starts kicking at the injured hand. There's a shotgun drop kick from Gunther, and then as Gunther tries to lift him, the hand is too damaged, and we get Ciampa with a big near fall off a knee strike, and then the Sicilian stretch, but Gunther gets to the rope. They go back to trading chops. Gunther even uses the bad hand, and Ciampa blocks it, tries to lift Gunther, but it's countered, and we get 2 power bombs from Gunther and applies the rear naked choke, and he puts Ciampa unconscious and just drops him to the mat like John Jones dumping Lyoto Machida. And it stopped in 22 minutes and 54 seconds. Just I thought, excellent main event that Raw had.
An outstanding match that, I mean, in a short amount of time did a whole lot for Tommaso Ciampa. Again, he's the type of talent that really just kind of needed to be given microphone time and a long TV match with
this was
somebody.
Like last half hour when you include the entrances, a lot of time given to this.
This was, I think, would you say like Ciampa's biggest, certainly of this current run? I have to really think back to like, everything he's done on the main roster, but this was like the most notable thing he's had in a long time. And they gave him a finish where he didn't tap out. He sort of like had a heroic, pass out, and really like, gave Gunther, like he was given a lot against Gunther. So much in the same way as, the Gable match really benefited Chad Gable coming out of it. I thought you had, to a smaller extent, the same quality for Tommaso Ciampa tonight.
So Gunther just walks off with the title as Vinci and Kaiser go after Ciampa, and he's getting beaten down. The announcers are yelling. He's still out from the choke. And then all of a sudden the music plays. Fortunately, this is the music that no one pops for because it's not the theme that people associate with Johnny Gargano, who returns from the witness protection program, and he runs down fighting off Vinci and Kaiser, and then him and first of all, the lower graphic is showing up, and they are racing against the clock here. They lock eyes and they hit the meeting in the middle onto Vinci. Boom, they cut to black and they are gone. So they just got this spot in at the very last second of the show. It seemed like they were racing against the clock here. But Gargano's back. He's aligned with Ciampa and feuding with Imperium, it would seem. Seems like the Imperium's feuding with a lot of teams now.
They might be done with Alpha Academy at this point. Like, who really
Abel's
knows?
not done with them. No, he didn't get the memo.
True, you're right. DIY's reunion is a long time coming here on the main roster, and I'm not exactly sure. I guess they had to wait for this Gunther match to do it, but we finally got there. I thought it was a really good final segment. Too bad it had to be so rushed, but I also think the fact that it was on TV instead of Fastlane was a benefit to it.
Think of the pop he would have got if his return was in Omaha next week. I mean, man, they really
in front of his family, man. Yeah.
So there you go. That was Raw. I thought an excellent main event. This was one of the better Raw matches in some time. I thought it was just tremendous. And the Gunther run, like as long as it's gone, I can't say I feel this is dragging in any way. I mean, his big matches feel so important. And when you can go out and do 22 minutes, 23 minutes, really, this match, it was excellent. I just thought they've elevated this title so effectively.
Yeah, I would say like maybe a shortcoming of this particular match is the build didn't feel all that big. Like it felt pretty obvious that it was going to be a Gunther retention. And I don't know if Ciampa ultimately felt that big going into the match, especially if it was going to be at Fastlane. But coming out of this, obviously like teaming up with Gargano immediately improves his stock, both of their stocks really. So I look forward to seeing what sort of storytelling they can do. First feud against Imperium, and then beyond that, at some point, whenever what are we talking about? Judgment Day? You know, maybe they'll be the ones to beat Judgment Day for the tag titles.
DIY.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're certainly bolstering this tag division with the two of them. So yeah, that was the conclusion of Raw with the return of Johnny Gargano. But we will open it up. If you want to send in any super chats, you are welcome to do so. We'll get to your questions, and we have feedback, including from we got some live feedback from people at the show.
We got some super chats here. The first one comes to us from Hernes de la Cruz. Thank you, Hernes. He says, Hangman versus Swerve had a 20-minute time limit. Does Hangman come out and say it was a draw, or does the feud still end? Forgot to send it yesterday. Did they go over the time?
They went over 20 minutes. That would
by
be
how much? Do you remember?
I'd have to look it up. Yeah, not by much. I mean, dude, it sounds like an awful
It just sounds like it was a mistake, and for that reason, if it's not officially recognized, I imagine they won't bring it up. Especially, I mean, I know Hangman did a promo afterwards. I get the sense he's still a babyface coming out of this, and that
I think this was like we've seen.
And this sort of like complaint feels very heelish. I do think they might bring it up though, you know, but then it makes the company look bad, doesn't it? Doesn't it expose the company for not sticking to their times?
I didn't even register if they even said that about the time. Why would that be a 20-minute time limit? But then they have plenty of other matches that go over 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what they announced. I don't really pay attention.
Hernes, I think this would be a really lame way to follow up that match, which was an excellent match on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's something that obviously like AEW they've leaned into many times, where sometimes it's a babyface, but he's going into enemy territory, and that can make for a cool environment rather than doing the traditional where it's like you fight the crowd and you have like Swerve come out before the show and just diss Seattle or something. And then it's just an inauthentic, it doesn't feel real.
Why fight against the tide when you can use it to your advantage to create the incredible moment that Seattle had and Swerve had that evening? Like that's a match that I think at this point was Swerve's biggest in AEW, and I think it might be a career highlight for him, you know, and we're sophisticated enough to understand that in certain home areas, this person could be a babyface for one night and the other person a heel for one particular night. The rematch, even on Wednesday, I could see that completely flipping already.
What do you see for Swerve coming out of this? Like, do you see?
I think you built to a rematch. No, personally, I think you built to a rematch. I think there's more story to tell with the two, but you're right. Like maybe they'll take a break. MJF challenge coming out of this.
There was that emphasis on becoming the first Black AEW champion, and you've just beaten one of the big guys. So, like I don't see that happening next week on the title Tuesday. But I could see MJF defending the title next week, whether it's Jay White, whether it's somebody else.
Yeah, I could very much see it too.
Maybe it's Dutch.
But I think Swerve should be the guy who actually beats MJF, and for that reason, I don't know if you do it just like for an unsuccessful defense. Like I could see him being a guy who like racks up so many wins, and he becomes so successful that like he could challenge an MJF and actually beat him on the first try. Obviously, like they could do rematches and whatnot, but yeah, that would be a logical step as well. But I ultimately see like another match with Hangman, like not sooner than later, I think. Let's go to Brandon from New Jersey. One of the new co-hosts of Eagles Don't Catch Flies.
Don't hunt flies.
Oh, sorry, Don't Hunt Flies. Eagles Don't Hunt Flies, the latest podcast to debut on Poison Rana coming up, where he, Dickie Bird, and Martin Bushby of former BWE fame will be going through the career and highlights of Jon Moxley. So, personally, I liked it when he when Bushby was playing around with the idea of calling this Mox tape, the Mox tape, but it's much good. Maybe they'll save that for a t-shirt or something. But Eagles Don't Hunt Flies, an incredible video that they made to promote it as well. So go on the Poison Rana social media and look for that. Happy to hear Martin Bushby come back to the airways with Brandon from New Jersey on a.
What if the three of them called each other the Ambrose?
Completely perfect. Yes. Looking forward to it. All right. Brandon says, I know this is going to come across as a dumb question, but bear with me. Who would wear a bigger collar at a brunch? Chatri Sityondong or Dana White? Who's Chatri Sityondong?
He's the head of one championship. And yeah, there's been, I guess, some back and forth that they've been having. I have no idea, Brandon. I don't even know what you're asking. It is a dumb question, but
he wears a pretty big collar.
Yeah, that's
like Dana.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Brandon. As always, making John Pollock speechless as you usually do. Okay, let's go to forum.postwrestling.com.
I will take Jesse's feedback tonight. Great Raw from SAP Center in San Jose, the city of New Japan's scene of the crime, when Monet took the IWGP Women's title from Kairi Sane, which the Pirate Princess could return to WWE, which leaves me this question. With the Abima WWE deal set to start, will Shinsuke win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship for Japan and be the first official Japanese WWE World Champion? And another question, do you think Edge's AEW debut overshadow the Inoki Memorial theme of WrestleDream if it's going to be an annual thing for AEW?
Goodness, wow. Did you take any breath in that?
No, there was no opportunity for me to take a breath in there.
Yeah. Very impressive, John. So Jesse, clearly your period key still is not fixed.
Or he's actively ignored your subtle constructive criticism.
He seems to ask great questions, has great use of the
Abima deal. It's just like it's a broadcast deal in Japan. They're not going to be doing some big change just because they have a deal in Japan. Like it's no. Would that be the reason to put a title on Shinsuke? No. I don't see them flipping the title, and I wouldn't see that being the catalyst for it either.
It's funny because like a month ago I would have said, yeah, put the title on Shinsuke, but I think I was just that much more like excited about this like subtitle gimmick than I was. And at this point I do kind of see like there are long-term limitations with doing that with like, other different challengers, whereas Seth Rollins, I think you still have a lot of big matches you could do with his current run. So yeah, I don't see it happening.
The Edge debut overshadowing the Inoki Memorial. I mean, it was like you had this excellent dude. I thought they went above and beyond, like doing this show about Inoki. That, like, let's be honest, like there's a huge portion of your audience that is not going to have lived through Antonio Inoki, or at least are not going to understand like the size of his contributions in professional wrestling history. I thought it was a really great ceremony they did for him, and it's like in his honor they put out like one of the best pay-per-views you're gonna see. Like I think that's
in no world do I see, oh, this is an Antonio Inoki tribute, we can't have Edge debut on the show.
Sorry,
we can't sign you, dude.
You're gonna have to debut in Stockton, California instead with a surprise.
Like ultimately like a show could use a theme, sure, but ultimately you're here to deliver a pay-per-view, like an entertaining professional wrestling show, and that's what they did. Let's go to back to the super chats here. Andy sends 100 rupees. Thank you, Andy. He says, did today's Raw feel disheveled and like it underwent a lot of last minute changes? Also, Cole said a puppet, a manipulator. Was that a CM Punk reference?
I don't know. He also he also was holding a microphone. Was that a Punk reference?
Yeah, I mean, one could argue Johnny Gargano's theme song, I mean, he maybe has some hints of a punk music influence,
Yeah.
Is that a CM Punk reference?
I mean, at the end of the show, I had definitely gotten my fill of pro wrestling for the night. Do you think that was by design?
Clear, yeah. Anyway, did it feel disheveled?
Yes, yeah, it did. Yeah. Tonight felt, and listen, some of it, like probably quite a bit of it, it did feel as though it was probably out of their control. Like this was not a show. Like again, this morning you looked, they had a ton of stuff announced, and it just seemed like there were issues. I mean, whether it was people not being cleared or just other issues, like it just felt like, it did feel like a show that had been shuffled around significantly. Yeah. Did have that feel to it.
And okay, like the follow-up question to that is, like how much of that is Vince McMahon? I mean, I could see this shit happening anyway for any professional wrestling show. Dynamite, I think it happens all the time too, just because of injuries, people not being cleared. And
I mean, one difference than like the Vince shows that would always get changed is that every match that was announced had an explanation for why it was not happening. They explained Damian Priest and Jey Uso. They explained Becky Lynch and Tegan Nox. Like those were the two matches that didn't happen that were advertised. And they like in the couple of years ago, you would announce something, and if it was changed, it was just never mentioned again. It was like we see when someone's cut now and Mustafa Ali is replaced by Trick Williams. It's just, we won't just mention it at all. At least this one, like they gave you a reason.
All right. We also get from Martin Bushby, sends a super chat to say, Ambrose for life. So I think you just created a new moniker, John.
We got it.
The Ambrose. Thank you very much, Martin. All right, let's go to Shane, who was at the show in San Jose. Long time no hear, Shane. Nice to hear you, or nice to see your feedback. She says, I was at the show. I don't follow WWE on a week-to-week basis, but I thought the first segments with the women's brawl leading into the Judgment Day confrontation was excellent. Unfortunately, everything after that dragged a lot. My biggest highlight was seeing that there's another McDonough out there supporting my boy Dom. Yes.
Very clever.
Welcome.
We go to Muggin. Drew McIntyre's descent into darker territory was rooted in logic, and using the Future Shock as his finish made a bunch of sense with how over the Claymore is. Tegan Nox got plenty to do tonight, and Becky's 11 stitches are a blessing in disguise as it gives her another week to build. The cold open with the women's brawl was effective, and the pop Rhea got was terrific. Speaking of Dom, it would be beyond criminal for Trick Williams to lose the North American title tomorrow. As far as I'm concerned, there's a bigger story with the crestfallen Mello. Judgment Day needs to stay out of NXT. And he says, Gunther and Ciampa felt like TakeOver, stand and deliver all over again. That match was just as ill as their match 2 years ago, and Johnny Wrestling made his return to top it off. DIY is back, baby.
I think the question of, so do you see a title change tomorrow? With Trick
I would think like there's a pretty decent possibility of it happening. Like the idea of like Dominic failing, especially when you have Rhea and JD there as backup. I could see him losing it.
But I totally agree with Muggin that I think it's far more interesting to see Carmelo's reaction to being the one not having a championship among the two, as a way to continue to turn him heel potentially.
Or you could have like Carmelo try to come, and it's like he's outnumbered, so Carmelo's going to be in Trick's corner, and he does something and it screws up, and it's this further like could Carmelo not stand him having this title and screwed him at the end, and you'll have the plausible deniability by Carmelo to state, I just had your back. And
I think that's a wonderful idea as well, John. Not only do you get to springboard into the feud that way, but you also get to keep the belt on Dominic, which, has proven to be a difference maker for their ratings. But the other thing is, okay, let's say Trick keeps the title. Dominic has finished his run so far in NXT. Who do you get to replace both he and Rhea Ripley at this point? Who basically takes on that role beyond Becky Lynch from the main roster? It could be anybody, of course, but they'll need somebody else, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly. I mean, there isn't like that group that has the I don't see them throwing like Jimmy and Solo Sikoa down on NXT. It seems like a kind of a awkward fit, but I mean, ultimately you can take whoever you want, but it's like they've got to have like the certain star power. But I don't see them wrapping this up with Judgment Day. I think they're kind of perfect for that role for a lot of reasons. Last one is you.
Oh, okay. This one comes to us from Manny from Pacoima, who says a really solid episode. The beginning segment was a great way to kick off Raw. Rhea Ripley came across like such a badass. I feel she could toe the line between heel and face in WWE, similar to Moxley, because she's punk rock like that. Huh? Is that a reference? Prayers for Dom. My boy is going to get his suitcase thrown at him tomorrow when Trick retains. I'm loving the NXT integration on the main roster. The main event was fantastic and hard-hitting. Ciampa's promo earlier in the night really got the crowd behind him, and Gunther more than held his own on the mic. Now that DIY is back, I look forward to a future match with Imperium and hopefully a better focus on the tag division on both brands that includes giving Wild and Del Toro some matches as well. I have to remember who's Wild. Yes, Joaquin Wild. I can't get used to that name, but all right.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for the feedback. And just looking here at Fastlane for this Saturday. So the latest lineup that we have 6 matches announced. Seth Rollins and Nakamura, last man standing match. John Cena and LA Knight against Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa in the tag match. Io Sky, Asuka, and Charlotte Flair for the women's title. And this is interesting. They are promoting the LWO as Rey, Santos Escobar, and either Joaquin Wilde or Cruz del Toro. So it'll be one of the two teaming with them against Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. So it will be a 6-man tag. Judgment Day against Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso for the undisputed tag titles. And it was just announced. It's a fatal 4-way match for the Intercontinental title with Gunther, Chad Gable, Bronson Reed, and Tommaso Ciampa, which might be the match of the show. I guess maybe they announced that after the show tonight.
I haven't even seen that. So I mean, you're
I'm going
back.
off Wikipedia. So
Same here.
That's
Gunther Fastlane. Let me just double check this and make sure it wasn't somebody. Be quite the troll to just randomly add this to Fastlane. Gunther Ciampa. Cable.
We will put an asterisk.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know
that
if
match because
it's actually happening. So. Okay.
Well, people can figure it out. It may or may not be happening. If it is happening, sounds like a great match.
Shouldn't go off Wikipedia, really. Anyway. This is really bothering me. Let's go on their official website here. Do you use?
I'm on the Fastlane site, and it is
listed?
Not. This is just. It's not listed on. Like the Fastlane site itself. So unless they like just quickly mention this on like Raw Talk or something, I don't see this listed here. So that may or may not be happening. We'll see.
Yeah, more on this later.
All right. So there
a big mystery that I don't think anybody really cares about that much. One last super chat comes to us from LCT, who says those blue and red tag belts need to go. They seem to be building tag teams on both brands. Are we going to get a split WWE and World Tag Team belts?
No, I don't think we are. I think they like the fact that you can put the belts on an overact and then you can move them back and forth. And I think it makes it kind of intriguing for that reason. I do not need more. You do not need two sets of tag belts. You barely have a functioning tag division that I think one set of belts is more than enough. And I do not care at all what color they are.
Yeah, I agree. Like it really, the tag titles are sort of like like they're your what do they call them? Hall pass. The
Hall pass belts, yes.
Hall pass belts. Not that Cody and Jey Uso seem to need them this Friday. But they did.
Yeah, there's well, he used to be an EVP, you see.
That's it. So he can do anything.
He can make these unilateral moves.
Formerly holding a title at another promotion gives you like powers like in life. Anyway.
He's got like a universal key card that works at every building in the country.
Okay. Sure.
Well, on that note, we are going to bid everyone a farewell. On Tuesday night, we have got up next with Braden Harrington and Davey Portman. In addition to Trick Williams and Dominic, they have announced Gigi Dolan against Blair Davenport, Mark Coffey and Wolfgang against Butch and Tyler Bate. Becky Lynch is advertised, and the start of the women's breakout tournament, which is a 8-woman single elimination tournament. And then we will be back Wednesday. Myself and Brandon Thurston, we're going to be joined by Brandon Ross from Light Shed Partners. He is returning, one of, I think, our first returning guest on Pollock and Thurston. So that is Wednesday at 3 Eastern. And then Wai and I are up at 10 Eastern immediately after Dynamite from Stockton, California. And we've got Rewind Away Thursday covering Predator, Rewind to SmackDown Friday, Fastlane and Collision Course coverage on Saturday, and then Sunday it is WH Park and Rich Fan, as they are going to be breaking down season 2 of Brandon Silvestri.
Jeez. You should. I hope you join them at some point, John. You know, just,
one day I will. Yes,
break out that.
That's what I want my AI voice to be. That's when I get tired of doing the audio updates.
Yeah.
Tonight, WWE Raw is going to be in San Jose. What does WrestleTix have with tickets distributed? I've distributed a lot of receipts, no tickets.
We'd have to increase the Patreon tier membership just to get the.
That's when inflation starts kicking our ass. That's when we gotta lean on that.
Just to get again, postwrestlingcafe.com, where for this week you will get John Pollock reading all of his daily news updates to you on Wednesday and on Friday. And you know what? If you ask nicely, if there happens to be a quote from Loki this week, he will do it in his Loki voice.
Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to sign off and stay healthy this season. Mask up if you need to, and we will speak with you all later this week.